he was president.
Thank you, President Mary Pat. There was a special year for a lot of reasons that had nothing to do with me. First of all, our district governor that year was Ken Baker, and he was a lot of great support for me as president, and I was always proud to go to different Rotary events and belong to the club of the district governor, and such a great district governor as that. One of the district governor-elects or designees or whatever they call them, one of the up-and-coming people was Cecil Gibson, who followed Ken a couple of years later, and that was also a big help to me. And the third reason, another thing that had absolutely nothing to do with me, but made that a special year, I picked today's date to give my presentation for a reason. Does anyone remember what yesterday was? All right, President Mary Pat, what was yesterday?
Yesterday was the 116th anniversary of Rotary International.
It was.
And that wasn't even planned.
It was. And I was president of the Rotary Club of West Jacksonville 16 years ago on Rotary's centennial, and it made it a special year. The theme for Rotary that year was Celebrate Rotary. And Rotary International certainly did, and we made up our mind as a club that we were going to do that as well. And I think we did a pretty good job. Things sort of got underway the year. We started a new tradition that year. Actually, before I took over as president, past President Bill Andrews started a tradition of having a past president's luncheon. And we sat down and I got a lot of good advice from the past presidents, but mostly their commitment to support me during the year, and just everyone to a person did that. I never asked anybody in the club, or certainly any of our past presidents, for a favor or some help when they said, and have them say no. We had a lot of our standard projects. We served meals at Saltzbrocker Center. We had our career day at Paxton School for Advanced Studies. We had an inbound exchange student, an outbound exchange student. One project that kind of came on by surprise is I got an email from someone in Russia, the Rotarian in Russia, that he was bringing a folk dance troupe through, and they were looking for places for some of the girls to stay and to put on some performances. And I arranged that with some of the members in our club, some of my neighbors who were members of other clubs. I think Nina Sasser's sister and brother-in-law housed one of the girls. We had some of the girls staying with us and saw it would be a great idea to exchange ideas and everything, but none of them spoke any English. The only communication they would have with us is they could say, please, Coca-Cola. And that was, but it was a lot of fun. We had our Christmas party that year at the Florida Yacht Club. And back then we would collect toys for Tots. And we would have the Marines come in at the end and pick up the toys and take them away. Dale Crisp was a little bit upset with the amount of toys we got the previous year. And he threatened that if we didn't get enough toys that year, that he would get naked. And the members were so scared about that it actually took the Marines had to call in reinforcements that year. And I'm not kidding, bringing 2 extra pickup trucks to take away all the toys. Like I said, we committed to celebrate Rotary that year. And it turned out that our regular Wednesday meeting fell on Rotary's birthday, February 23rd, 2005. And one of our former members, now a member of the Southside Club, Meg Folds, did a real good job planning our luncheon that day. She brought in some decorations for the Cubs and the White Sox and whatever. And Phil Murphy did a good job jazzing up our menu at the Holiday Inn with Chicago hot dogs and deep dish Chicago pizza. We weren't able to fit the fried chicken on the buffet that day, and we almost had a lot of people resign the club, but we were able to get that under control. We ended the year with the Rotary International Convention in Chicago. We had a good group of the club members go on up. We reserved some rooms at the Marriott on Miracle Mile, and a bunch of us got together. One night at Gibson's in Chicago on Rush Street, and had a really nice dinner. And afterwards, we were directed nearby to the Redhead Piano Bar, which was a lot of fun. And District Governor, Designate, or whatever you called him, Cecil Gibson, we were standing around the piano bar with our wives, and this group of young guys came in, and they were kind of nice-looking, tough guys, and all of our wives were talking to them and having a good time. And Cecil came up to me and suggested that we could make some money off of the guys, because he was pretty sure that he could out-chug any one of them. And his wife told us that he was right. And we started getting it in place, and we almost had the guys, but I don't have a terribly good poker face. And after a couple of martinis at Gibson's, it got even worse. And right before they started the contest, they backed out and they said they recognized Cecil as a ringer. But they watched him chug a beer, and they all bowed down to Cecil. So that was I knew then that Cecil was going to make a good district governor. Anyway, we had a lot of fun. One of the things that I will mention on the serious note at the Rotary Convention is something they do at every Rotary Convention. They have a Southland breakfast where all the clubs from the South meet, and they always serve grits. And I guess they do that whether they go to Japan or anywhere else.
Your calendar.
Wait, Glenn, I'm busy.
Oh, okay.
Ken Baker got special recognition from the zone commander that we were the only club that year we were the only district that year that raised $1 million towards Polio Plus. And our club went a long way to supporting that. I think Tom Sandlin had set an ambitious goal at the beginning of the year that we met and exceeded. And all those things made me very proud to be a Rotarian. It was a great year, and a lot of those things were something that I had nothing to do with. It was all thanks to our club membership, our club leadership, our district leadership, and Rotary Centennial year.
Thank you, Mike. Sounds like you had a really fun year and lots of exciting things going on that year. To piggyback on that a little bit with our Rotary's 116th anniversary, I have a little quiz for you. You can chat your answers or just answer them if you wish. It'll be brief, but with the Rotary being formed in Chicago in 1905, can you name the club that made us international in 1912? Paris, Dublin, or Winnipeg? No, it was Winnipeg. Next question. Rotary Foundation offers grants that support member-driven service projects. Can you name the year that the first grants were awarded? That would have been 1917, 1965, or 1988. This is a hint. It was started with a donation of $26.50.
1917?
Yes, 1917, you are correct. Next question. Rotary Peace Centers educate leaders in peace building and conflict preservation. The Rotary recently received a several $1 million donation to establish our newest peace center. Can you name the country where this will be located? Switzerland, Israel, Uganda. Israel. It was just announced last night. That was news. Rotary International began its fight against polio in 1979 with an immunization project in which country? Nigeria, the Philippines, or India?
India.
India, correct. And okay, I have two more, and I thought they were both pretty interesting. Interact is our program that develops leadership skills for young people. When did Interact start? 1929, 68, or 62? Correct. 1962 was when they started Interact. And the last one, this is a trick question. Rotary's motto, service above self, was inspired by a speech given by whom? Art Klump, Paul Harris, or Frank Collins?
Frank.
Nope. It was Frank Collins. He was asked to present a speech at the second annual Rotary Convention in 1911, and his speech was surrounding the idea of Rotary and service above self. So in 1950, that motto was officially adopted. That's the end. Thank you for that. I hope you all had fun with the quiz. I wanted to remind everybody to RSVP anytime that there's an event or an in-person meeting. You can go to DACDB to RSVP. And next month is, I have to get ready with my prop here. Can y'all see my hat? Up. There we go. Can you see my hat? Oh, I can't quite get it. It's a, I'll give up. It's a beer hat. March 17th, we'll be celebrating St. Patrick's Day. That's a Wednesday. There will be no meeting on March 17th, but William Milne and Lee Davis are planning a social that evening. So if you can save the date, March 17th, we'll have a social in the evening to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Hope everybody gets their green on and gets ready for that. We will be meeting again every other Wednesday in March, with the exception of the 17th. So if you'll please make note, we will be in person at Timuquana on March 3rd and March 24th. We'll have Zoom on March 10th and March 24th. And then on March 31st, we'll be back in person. So it's every other week, with the exception of the 17th, when we'll have our social. And those are all on DACDB. They're all on our calendar. And if you could please RSVP for the in-person meetings at Timuquana on March 3rd. And I'm getting confused myself. March 31st. And then next on the list, we have Seth Williams for Family of Rotary.
Thank you, Patty, President Patty. Just wanted to let everybody know there's not a whole lot going on. A couple birthdays for a couple club members. February, happy birthday, Drew. And then Mr. Preston Kais on the 27th of February. I don't have any other news from any other club members, so I'll adjourn there, but I appreciate everybody being here today. It was a great group. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Does anybody have any news to share for the good of the club? John Runyon, did you want to brag about your fish? No?
Next time.
Okay.
I'll bring you some pictures next time.
All right, that's a deal. Thank you, Seth. And we have
Allays are better than pictures, just saying.
it was this big. And now we have Stu Irwin, if you will welcome our guests and visiting Rotarians.
Certainly will. Patty, did the visitor show up today? The visitor Rotarian make it?
No, I
Didn't-
don't think I saw him, but I does have guests. And then there's someone that I can't identify still, so I don't know.
Well, Ike has 2 guests to introduce today.
Actually, I have 3 guests.
Okay,
Stu.
great.
3 co-workers are joining me today. Bill DeRazio, Vice President of Business Development for Total Distribution, James McMaster, Director of Transportation for Total Distribution, and Gabrielle Pertica, Operations Ninja for Total Distribution.
Thank you. Since I probably won't be Sergeant at Arms on St. Patrick's Day, or at least prior to, there's a story about these 3 Irishmen that walked out of a bar at 3 o'clock in the morning. I think about that. It's possible. It could have happened. They could have walked out. Irishmen in a bar, walking out. So much for St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, God.
Thank you, Stu. I have family members that might resemble that remark. And with that, could you please introduce our speaker for today?
Thank you, President Mary Pat. Our speaker today is Tyler Newman from Cushman Wakefield. With over 23 years of experience in commercial real estate, Tyler Newman serves as the senior most member of Cushman Wakefield's Jacksonville Industrial Services team. Four-person team represents the market's top landlords, tenants, investors, and developers in leasing, sales, site selection, and more throughout Northeast Florida and beyond. Over the last several years, Mr. Newman and his team have been involved in many of Jacksonville's largest industrial deals. As the Jacksonville industrial market expands with new development, his team has become the go-to leasing team for speculative space, within new Class A warehouses, distribution centers, and logistics parks. In the last 5 years alone, Mr. Newman and his teammates have completed lease and sales transactions totaling nearly $800 million and 15 million square feet of space. Tyler has closed many significant projects, and his notable clients include Blackstone, Stag, Jackson Shaw, Eisenberg Holdings, Amazon, Webb International, Fanatics, Coach, Patriot Rail, Citibank, and his favorite client, Total Distribution. Tyler is a devoted husband and father, and he and his beautiful family live in Ponte Vedra. Ladies and gentlemen, Tyler Newman.
Thank you, Ike. That's quite the introduction. Can you guys hear me? Thumbs up? Everybody hear me? Great. It's an honor to be invited to this. And, given where I came from, I never thought I'd be where I am, but I am eternally grateful, especially being invited by the Rotary Club, such a well-respected organization. So thank you for having me. I'm going to share my screen here and get in. So hopefully this all works. All right, thumbs up. Can you see my screen? Great, great. All right, so let me kind of give you a little background. I kind of gave a little bit. I've been doing this for about 20 years. And I remember when I started in the business, I didn't really go by choice to be an industrial broker. I essentially got the job because they ultimately told me they got tired of listening to my voicemails for trying to call them so many times to get in there. So they hired me as an intern, and I graduated 3 months later. And I guess I must have called them for a long period of time because they didn't realize that I only had 3 months left till I graduated. They felt sorry for me. I started in the database and I worked my way up, and that was up north. I moved to Jacksonville in 2008, and it's been a whirlwind since then. We opened a new office here in 2008, and I'm proud to be part of Cushman & Wakefield and very happy and consider Jacksonville my home now. So it's been a fun transition. Industrial real estate. So I'm sure you all know the different food groups. There's the basic food groups for commercial real estate would be retail, office, and industrial. And 20 years ago, industrial is where you went if I guess you didn't have the charm to be in retail or office, and it really didn't have the marquee that it did today. But my uncle, one of my favorite people in the world, was a truck driver, and every time my aunt would complain about traffic on the roads, he would let her remind her that nothing happens in this world without a trucker taking it somewhere. And so in that link is warehouse. So I'm happy to be part of what the America thrives on and is able to get through with industrial warehouse. So let me get into this. First part, this is basically just a general market overview. Our market, what we track, this is just the industrial real estate, is roughly 97 million square feet. We'll round up, call it 100 million square feet. Now that number differs compared to what system you're looking at. That can go up to 140 million. We really whittled it down over the years to be the critical mass. We eliminated the self-storage units and some functionally obsolete buildings and just pared down to what is important for our clients. So that number you're going to see that lower compared to some other people. Out of that makeup, there's 3 food groups. There's manufacturing, there's manufacturing, warehouse, and flex space. So the warehouse would be what Ike is in, what Amazon is in, FedEx, you name it. They occupy warehouse. Manufacturing, you'll see everybody from a printing company to, VacCon down in Green Cove Springs. Those are manufacturing. And then the flex stuff is basically, which is the smallest component, is the stuff you see up and down Phillips Highway. So you'll have your local tile guys, countertops. It'll be a big showroom with about 50% office, and in the back they'll have a warehouse full of the local goods for the delivered. So that's really what the makeup of those food groups are. The largest landlords in town, first on the list is Patillo. Patillo is a family-owned business out of Atlanta. They are very good. They're a client of ours. They're wonderful to work with, and they're the dominant force in town. Next is Blackstone, which goes by the marquee of Link. That is a publicly traded company. And then you can see rounded out by East Group, Real Capital, and Invesco. There is a huge demand for investment, fully leased industrial buildings across the United States. And it is definitely the shining star when it comes to commercial real estate. And again, I just got lucky getting industrial, but years ago, that wasn't the case. Current vacancy rate is 5.72%. Year-to-date absorption, this is, I remind you, this is the end of the quarter, fourth quarter 2020. Each quarter we do a report, and obviously in a month or so we'll have one for this year, but this is the end of the year for 2020. It's important to note that. Asking rates for the combined of these is $5 per square foot. That number gets a little skewed when you look at flex space. It can lease from $10 to $12 per square foot, and a warehouse can lease for $3.50 per square foot. And I'll do a little deeper dive on product types here in a second, but that's the overall picture. And then leasing activity for all of 2020 was 5.4 million square feet. Now, the difference between leasing activity and absorption. Leasing activity, for example, we were lucky enough to work with Ike and his group. We renewed them in their current warehouse. So there is no net gain, so to speak. So if hypothetically they were leasing 100,000 square feet and they came back and renewed for another 5 years, 100,000 square feet, we'll get 100,000 square feet of leasing activity. Now, hopefully in a couple of years or 6 months or 2 days, if Ike decides to take 150,000 square feet, and we take an additional 50, that'll be absorption of 50,000 square feet to the positive. This chart below, this is tenants in the market. So we track very closely the number of deals that are going through Jacksonville. So if this is very common for Jax USA, who's wonderful to work with, will give us a call. They'll have a company looking in town. They'll have some project name, which you probably read in the paper, and they'll be looking for 500,000 square feet. As soon as we catch wind of it, we put it on our chart and we track that until it lands. Now, many times that 500,000 square foot user will look in Savannah, they'll look in Atlanta, they'll maybe look in Orlando, and they'll play the incentives game, or they'll be doing a logistics study to find out the best location for them. So the point to that is not everybody on this list lands in Jacksonville. And you can see roughly at the end of the year, we had 2.5 million square feet of tenants in the market. You'll note around the March-April timeframe and the slight lag, I'm sure we can all figure out why that dropped down. When COVID first happened, there was a significant panic from everybody, including myself, thinking that the world is coming to an end. But lucky for us, even though that COVID is a tragic thing, and I'm not at all trying to downplay, but we are just a fortunate few that are benefiting by it, simply because of e-commerce, home deliveries, and the way that people's buying habits have changed forever. So the next slide, this is really shows a good picture of Jacksonville. This is really my favorite slide. Probably not the favorite for everybody on here because it's not really that exciting to look at. But I want you to take note of the direct vacancy rate. So you can see back in 2015, it was 7.4%, and today it's 5.7. This chart really helps us explain to, tenants trying to look for space of why the market is in such demand, and developers we're trying to encourage to build new buildings so we have product to put folks into. If you look at this gray bar right here, the construction completions in 2017 was 2.57 million square feet of space got delivered that year. Well, look what happened in 2018. Only 152,000 square feet of space was delivered to the market. that created a huge issue as far as companies looking to locate to Jacksonville.
Tyler, I think you're muted.
His phone may have cut out because he's using a phone as his speaking part. So give him a minute and maybe he'll be able to call back in. Yeah, here he is. I'll get him.
Thank you, Patty.
Am I back? All right. Sorry about that. Where did I leave off?
You talked about a glut in the market, and then when you started to see that low construction completion rate, it started telling people outside of Jacksonville what the market was, you know, basically determining here locally, and then you were taking off from there.
All right, perfect. Sorry about that. I love technology. Yeah, so this is what happened. We had no new deliveries in 2018, or we had 152,000. So essentially, the vacancy caused the vacancy rate to go down. But we've lost a lot of opportunities in Jacksonville for those bigger companies coming through Jax USA because there was nowhere to put anybody. So thankfully, we saw the trend. You can see construction deliveries in 2019 went to 4.6, and then in 2020, 2.7. So where does this take us from here? In the past 5 years, we really need to understand the tenants that are coming to the market and who are these tenants. So this 5-year snapshot that we've breaking out here is summarized. Basically, this is about 27.5 million square foot of deals over 5 years for Jacksonville. So some of the categories that you'll see, a shipping provider would be UPS, FedEx. E-commerce would be Amazon, of course, but there's also a lot of companies in town like Ulta Beauty, if you're familiar with that group. They have retail stores, but they opened a new warehouse here last year strictly for e-commerce. So we categorize that e-commerce. 3PLs such as Ike's Company. Building supplies would be Home Depot. Consumer goods, pretty self-explanatory. Manufacturing, and you kind of get the picture from there. So we did a breakout. So that provides a pretty good snapshot of who's coming to town. And really the biggest growth, you know, no secret, if you are in front of any news source locally, the e-commerce is really driving that along with building supplies. So we've done a number of deals. So we represent Home Depot here locally, and we've done a number of renewals for them. They've solidified for many more years. We recently put Lowe's into one of our properties, and then all the above. It's just from HVAC suppliers, etc. Really, that has to do with the growth of Jacksonville, and e-commerce really has to do with the growth of the way consumers buy their goods. The next, these two building types. So these are two different products that are on the market. So both of these buildings are listed by us, and we do both. So on the left is one of the marquee properties in town, owned by Patillo. This building was built on spec. And what I mean by spec, it was built speculatively that they are going to build it and wait for a tenant to come. This has all the bells and whistles with 36-foot clears, so you can rack very high. You got cross dock operations. Actually, you have more than cross dock because they have docks on the end. And this is really the top of the line building. And on the right, another one of our listings is this 2461 Rolac Road. And I put this on there because we really need for a community to thrive and grow, we need both these product types on the market. So the building on the right is attracted to, call it, you know, your countertops, your bug service companies, your cabinet makers, all the sort. They love these type of buildings. This is on the south side of town. It works very well for what they do. My focus, I have a team of 3. So Others in my team focus on this product type. I focus on the investment grade buildings, the bigger box users coming to town and try to drive that. So the rest of these slides are focused on the investment grade buildings, as we call them, because really that's where it hits the paper, and that's really the exciting stuff that we like to talk about. All right, so in our subset of properties, out of that 100 million square feet, 32 million of this is tracked separately. And we do that because it is, like I said, the marquee buildings, these pictures you see are actual buildings that we have, and this is what we track. You'll see the vacancy rate is roughly the same as the overall market at 5.86%. But realistically, there's leases signed and the vacancy rate doesn't go down until the tenant occupies the space. So you'll see that number decline to under 5% within the next 60 days is our prediction. And we track this very closely. And you'll see this is the good story for trying to get investors to invest in Jacksonville so we can flatten that curve and not miss any opportunities. In 2015, these 32 million square feet saw an average lease rate of $3.73 a foot. In 2020, we've seen that grow to $4.75 per square foot. Now, if you recall back to that slide where we had no space built, you can see the rate drop because there wasn't any, and this is, there wasn't any new buildings. And so the average dragged down by the Class B buildings in that subset. Next, this is deal velocity. So this really shows you the size of tenants in that subset of 32 million square feet, the nicer stuff. You'll see the bulk of the deals done in Jacksonville, Florida, 29% of them are that little over 100,000 square feet to 150,000 square feet. So this middle of a pack here is where we do majority of our business. And you'll see on the bigger side, when you get over 500,000 square feet, most of those become build-to-suit opportunities. And the build-to-suit is when a company comes down like Wayfair. We all heard about the Wayfair that was in the newspaper. That building was not built prior to them coming here. They struck a deal, signed a lease, and the building got built for them. So that's what we call a build-to-suit. So those bigger deals, generally that 8, probably 6 of those were build-to-suit. 2 of them were the bigger box spec buildings that we showed about earlier. And then in 2020, we tracked 38 different lease comps on the bigger section. And this really shows what's going on. 60% of those tenants expanded, which provided net absorption from the first slide. Only 3% contracted, 8% made a lateral move, 29% renewed, and my favorite orange bubble, 26% of the deals, the 38 deals that we tracked last year for the bigger buildings were new to this market. I think that's great for our area. That is, as far as the rest of the nation goes, depending on what your city, that is probably above average when you go across the nation. So we are here. Our city is forever changed for the positive, and I'm proud to be part of the change. Next, these are deliveries. So these are all the new buildings that got built last year. 2.74 million square feet of space got delivered in 2020. Out of that 2.74, 2.11 were leased prior to the end of the year. I can tell you by looking at this list, there are deals pending for every open vacancy on this list. So I anticipate that number, that these buildings will be 100% full within 60 days, maybe worst case 90. That's pretty impressive. And going back to build-to-suit versus spec, if you look at number 1 here, Wayfair, build-to-suit, and number 5, this was a freezer cooler building on the west side. That was a build-to-suit as well. All the ones in the middle essentially were built on spec and filled up as they were coming online. New construction starts for 2021. These are the permits that are filed, and we anticipate these buildings, most of these buildings, getting finished by the end of this year. If you're building an industrial building in Jacksonville, Florida, you need a minimum of 12 months if the site is perfect, most likely 18 months before a building is completed. So there is a significant lag in this whole planning process. So these are the ones we anticipate. There might be one more we throw on now if they can get it put together. But you see a good array of buildings in clear heights. So again, for the clear heights, 36-foot clear, 28-foot clear. It allows for more cubic storage. They can rack real high, fit more goods into the buildings. And we have a pretty good set here of product and sizes to accommodate a lot of different tenants. It's not as much as I'd like to see. It's easy for me to say because I don't pay the mortgage on these, but we encourage our clients to build more. And that's really our push right now. We have multiple land sites under contract, and we are pushing to get through due diligence and then get the things constructed so we can deliver them first quarter, second, third quarter of 2022. And on this list, you'll note that, see, all these generally look the same. They're modern tilt wall. This number 8 really is kind of a neat project. These are metal buildings. They're building over on the west side. They don't have the same amenities that on these other ones do. You can see the truck court is pretty tight. There's not a whole lot of parking, and they're built out of metal versus concrete, significantly lower costs. The positive of all that is it's lower costs for tenants. So they does fill a niche for some of the users that don't require a lot of truck parking and don't require a lot of trailer storage and car parking for their employees. So we got a good amount of stuff. I'd like to see this doubled in 2022. Now, some of the drivers that we feel for Jacksonville, we did this comparison. If you look over, and this 43% rent is the cumulative total for 2016 to 2020. And this number includes housing starts. And it also includes multifamily, important to note. So over the past 5 years, we saw a 43% increase in building permits. That's a pretty impressive number. And this is all this is kind of done post-COVID, but I would venture to guess, and we got this from the Census Bureau, these numbers, given the amount of people coming to Florida, will significantly change and go up for the positive. If you look at Orlando, they had an 8% growth over the time period. They're predicted to grow even more over the next 21 to 25. In Tampa, the same. So, future looks pretty good for both. Orlando just keeps sprawling and sprawling. So their MSA and the amount of land they have is astronomical. But we are very fortunate here in Jacksonville too, because my opinion on the industrial land side, depending how far you go, we still got a good, 15-year supply of space at the amount of absorption we're doing now. It'll be a little further out of town. The sites people are looking at now are closer to the core for transportation and labor issues. But we all know that cities grow and eventually sprawl out, and we're in a very good position to absorb the growth and be ready for it coming in the future. Next, this basically shows the unemployment rates for the competing cities. We don't really consider ourselves competition for Miami-Dade from a logistics perspective. If you're shipping a truck to Miami-Dade, it's coming back empty, and that gets expensive. Tampa, Orlando, and Jacksonville are able to serve their markets, and they're able to serve other markets. So the user sizes in those 3 markets will be significantly larger than anything in Miami-Dade. What we like about this at 5.2% unemployment is that there's still enough available labor to attract businesses, but it really shows how resilient and not tied to the tourism industry we are compared to the rates of Orlando and Miami-Dade at 7.7 and 7.4. You can see that we're looking to grow 17% in the transportation and warehouse and 10% in construction. Again, I think that's going to be significantly different, and those numbers are going to really skew once this data comes out from the whole migration down to our area of the world. So history repeats itself. You can see over the last 5 years, our leasing activity, 4.5 million, with 3.2 million average tenants in the market over the last 5 years. And we got 2.6 million square feet of space proposed for 2021. And we're really pushing for at least 2 to 3 million square feet more to come online in 22. Again, I like to see that doubled. I'm not paying the mortgage, but I'm giving my clients a compelling reason of why to take the risk, and the reward will be there for them at the end. So that's really what I have to present today, but I left a few minutes for questions, and I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions about what we do, how we do it, who's coming to town, all the above.
Thank you, Tyler. We did have one question that came through chat from Michael Crumpler. He's asking who builds all the buildings.
So who builds them, as far as the contractors go, there's a number of contractors. There's ARCO, there's a few others as far as construction, but the owners of the building are generally publicly traded companies or family-run companies that have been industrial for a long time. So locally, Patillo, that I mentioned, out of Atlanta, but Bill Spinner is a local name, really solid guy. He builds a great product. And there's a handful of others that do the local scene. But when it comes to these larger buildings, they generally get their money from other sources across the country, just given the staggering amount that costs to build them. And that's where it's coming from.
Thank you, Tyler. I was curious about the construction going on over in the Powers Avenue area. I know for years that area was declining, but it's so convenient. I was curious if there's other projects planned for that little distribution area.
Yeah, so we have a client, their name is Skanel, and they're a developer out of Indianapolis. And we've done a couple of projects with them here. We have, at the airport, we have 156,000 square footer and 117,000 square footer. And we named him Freebird off of Leonard Skinner because he's from Jacksonville. So we took that theme, and that same developer is building 85,000 square foot new building on Powers Avenue, and they're going to call it Southbound. And then we have another project we're doing, if you're familiar with 210 and 95, the Beach Walk area. If you get off 95 on 210 and you head east towards the beach, you got the railroad tracks to Phillips Highway. All that land that you see that's vacant is under contract to Skanel, and we're trying to come up with the next rock theme to name that industrial park. But we have the rights to put up, probably about 1.5 million square feet of space down that way.
I could probably give you some ideas of some rock band names, I would suspect. We have a couple of other questions that have come in. First from Jeff Ludwig. When someone wants a smaller space under 10,000, who do they see and where do they look?
If it's industrial, by all means, call myself. And depending on what part of town it is, we'll put the right person. There's 3 of us on the team. But most of that size stuff is generally on the south side, and there's some on the west. But we have another guy on my team named Taylor. He's well versed in that stuff. So we're here to accommodate anything industrial is what we say.
Thank you, Tyler. Our next question comes from Seth Williams. He's with the Resident Magazine. He's asking any idea or hunch about Amazon and their choice to go elsewhere for their headquarters. Any contributing factors that the general public might be unaware of?
Sure. So, and what when we deal with Amazon, they are a client, so we have a confidentiality. We can't really say what's going on. So everything I'm telling you is just basically it's been in the paper. For that headquarters deal that hit the paper, it's probably been 2 years ago now, if we think about it. That really kind of blew up. And I think they ended up going to multiple cities, and they did not do one headquarters deal. Now, as far as that is an office operation, and this is just my opinion that I'm giving you of why it didn't come to Jacksonville. They needed a city with a lot of talent coming out of college. We have good schools, but other areas have good schools multiplied by 5. They needed an airport with a lot of nonstop connections. We have a great airport, but the others, such as Atlanta, have money that can go to other cities. And time, the cliche, time is money, and they wanted that aspect. So those are two contributing factors why, in my opinion, that we never really had a shot. But everything I'm speaking about today is just raising the bar of who we are. And we are trending in a very positive way. And we are going to be a marquee city in the very near future, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Tyler. The next question came from Drew Bisbee. He's asking, what is the average cost per square foot for retail and for manufacturing?
So retail, I'm proud to say I really don't know because I've never done a retail deal. But I would venture depending on where you are. So I'm just going to guess at Town Center, which is everybody knows, and it's it's the shining star for our area. I'm going to guess, guys, got to be, I don't know, $25 a foot. And that's just a pure swag for manufacturing. So if you're looking to lease a 500,000 square foot, you're probably going to be in the low $4 per square foot. And the smaller you go, we just did a deal recently of 100,000 square feet, and that rate was $5.25. Now, those are generalizations, and it all matters what it has in the building. So those rates I gave you, they basically had a simple office, no air condition, a bunch of dock levelers. Now, if that same person needs air conditioning in the warehouse, needs 20,000 square feet of office and a bunch of fancy power and stuff on the inside, that rate goes up from there.
Thank you, Tyler. The next question is from Philippe, and he's asking if you have any idea about Adecco, if they're staying with their lease. Wait, let me reread this. Sorry. Any idea if Adecco is staying on with their lease, given that they announced they will be moving their corporate headquarters to Atlanta?
That's office space. I do not know, but I am more than happy to ask one of my office professionals. And if you want to send me an email or a text message, I'll be glad to find that out and report back to everybody.
Thank you. Anybody else? I think we've, looks like one just came through. I'm not sure who this is from. It says, good news for Northeast Florida. With more traffic, are we as a city and state keeping up with road, highway, and rail maintenance to support the increased traffic?
I went to, and gosh, if somebody remembers, please jump in. There is the planning association that does all those roads. And we have, I wish I could remember. We are very fortunate, and that is why we're growing, is because the capacity on the roads there's plenty of capacity on our roads to accommodate the next 5 years plus, in my opinion, especially with the new First Coast Expressway coming off of I-10, reaching down into Green Coast Springs, the lane increases. I mean, gosh, I remember years ago, you had 295, but then you called that last stretch 9B, and how much that's grown over the years. Nobody likes sitting in traffic, and we all complain about it. And me more than anybody, because I'm on the road a lot. Then I go to another city of Atlanta or Dallas, and I am so grateful. So whenever we get to that point and you're thinking, God, this traffic is awful, just go to another city and you realize how great we have it. And I feel very confident for the next 5 years. Our city is planned accordingly, and we're going to be good to go.
That was a great way to end your presentation, Tyler, with optimism of the future of our city. And with gratitude, thank you for being with us today. And thank you to Ike for planning the presentation. Next week, please remember, we'll be at Timuquana, and our speaker will be Carlton Robinson from Innovation Jacksonville Chamber. And if you'll remember to RSVP to Patty, we would appreciate that. And welcoming back Jeff Rayner to the club, and he will be leading us in the four-way test.
All right, fellow Rotarians, the four-way test of the things we say, think, say, or do. Is it truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, everybody, for being with us today. Thank you to our guests and our speaker, and we look forward to seeing you live and in person next week. Have a good day.
Have a good day, everybody.